Hello and welcome. I am Gimba Umar. Tonight, Federal Cabinet remains intact. President Muhammadu Buhari to hold valedictory session, May 22nd. Nigeria acquires 52 billion naira modern technology facility to monitor the nation's 86 border posts. Senate summons Inspector General of Police to explain the killings and banditry in the country. Sudan's top 3 generals in the Transitional Military Council resign.
On business news tonight, House of Representatives set to investigate non-remittance of multi-trillion naira stamp duties by the Nigeria Postal Service and the Central Bank.
And on sports news tonight, Premier League leaders Manchester City dominate the Professional Footballers Association's Team of the Year after claiming 6 out of 11 spots.
And from Abuja, appeal court adjourned eligibility case against Osun governorship candidate Ademola Adeleke as PDP raises alarm over his safety.
As the first 4 years of President Muhammadu Buhari's tenure winds down gradually, the President will be holding a valedictory session of the Federal Executive Council meeting on May the 22nd. The Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, after the Federal Executive Council meeting today, says that President Muhammadu Buhari's cabinet is still intact. A decision was also taken to control the nation's porous borders through electronic means. Our correspondent Gloria Omezuke reports.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, just back from a short break, presides over the Federal Executive Council meeting. After the meeting, which held behind closed doors, the Minister of Information and Culture, Mr. Lai Mohammed, says the President has not yet dissolved the Cabinet.
The Cabinet is still intact. We are going to have the valedictory service on the 22nd of May. So you still need to suffer out small.
It is on this.
The Minister of Interior, Lieutenant General Abdurrahman Dambazo, also announced an e-border solution to curb cross-border crimes.
Sometime since 2012, but we picked it up and to move forward when we came in. The process is supposed to be completed within the next 2 years. It will cost about 52 billion naira. This project is going to cover 86 border posts in the country, and also we'll be able to monitor those illegal routes which we have identified as about 1,400 of them. We'll be able to monitor those illegal routes that are used for smuggling and all kinds of cross-border criminal activities.
The project, which will be solar-powered, also guarantees a 2-year training of personnel in operations.
The threats are there. They know no boundaries. Terrorism, for instance, doesn't know boundary, doesn't know border. So it's for everybody to realize that these threats are common and we must come together to deal with them accordingly. But where this threat is big, this information is also passed, for instance, to the Air Force, to the police. They also have the capacity to respond.
The introduction of this new technology for the federal government is apt. It would not only improve customs security management of the nation's borders, but also effectively tackle cross-border crimes across the nation's over 4,000 kilometers of land border. From the presidential villa, Gloria Omezuke, Channels Television News.
Earlier today, the President again made a firm commitment that his government will not relent in the search for the remaining Chibok schoolgirls abducted by Boko Haram insurgents in Borno State. He was speaking today at the Palace of the Shehu of Borno after commissioning numerous projects embarked on by the Borno State government.
The President arrives at the industrial park on Jos Road in Maiduguri. He commissions the park, which for now is home to 16 factories. From the industrial park, the president moves on to commission a school named after the former secretary to the government of the Federation, Mr. Babagana Kingibe. The mega secondary school 1 and 2 and more projects. The train continues as President Buhari proceeds to the specialist hospital at the palace of the traditional ruler of Borno, where he reiterates government's commitment to the release of the remaining Chibok girls abducted by Boko Haram.
As president, as a Nigerian, and as a parent, I share the agony of every Nigerian whose loved ones are in the hands of abductors. Therefore, government will do the needful to successfully reunite these girls with their families. The federal government has since 2015 been involved with resident and foreign stakeholders in evaluating the impact of Boko Haram attacks across the Northeast. Significantly, we are putting in efforts to end insurgency in the region. I am pleased that the Borno State government has taken advantage of the peace we have generated to achieve so much in housing, roads, agriculture, industry, and most significantly, in education.
The governor then responds.
The past 10 years were very tough years for the people of Borno. We are vigorously pursuing a grassroots socio-economic empowerment program with agriculture as the centerpiece. Believe me, with investments in agriculture, a Borno man has no business being poor.
Other places visited are the Aliko Dangote Academy, the 303 housing estate, and the government house.
Thank you, Excellency. I also unveil the flag. Excellency.
After taking a break, the president's team returns to commission the Professor Yemi Oshibajo Primary School, Muhammadu Buhari Academy, Pompomare Bypass, which is the last project he commissioned before setting out to the United Kingdom.
And shortly after the commissioning of those projects in Maiduguri, the president departs Nigeria for the United Kingdom on a private trip, and he's expected back in the country on May the 5th. The presidency is, however, insisting that his trip to the UK is strictly private and not a medical vacation, as has been speculated in some quarters. The special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Mr. Femi Adesina, was on our program Politics Today.
Those who want to interpret everything, you see, those who want to believe all things should just believe what has been released, that is a private trip. When a man goes on a private trip, he has the right to use his time the way he deems, because he has a right to a private time. So those who want to believe it's a medical trip, they have a right to believe it if it pleases them, if it makes them happier. President Buhari has, since December, the last weekend in December when he launched the presidential campaign, all through till February, he was on campaign stops around the country, went to the 36 states and Abuja. The elections came, and a lot of people expected that immediately after the election, he will travel out maybe to rest, to attend to his health. Well, you see, 2 months after the election, the president was still working and working vigorously. Right. The elections have been concluded 2 months now, and he's just traveled on a private trip.
Right. The security matters now. The Senate today issued a summons to the Acting Inspector General of Police, Mr. Muhammad Adamu. Now, he is expected to brief the upper house on what the police is doing to address the permanent the rampant kidnappings and banditry across the country. Our correspondent Linda Higbe reports.
On February 8, 2018, the National Assembly held a summit on national security. The summit was held to formulate solutions to the security challenges distressing Nigerians. The National Assembly came out with several recommendations to the executive after the summit, which include that the nation's basic security infrastructure must be comprehensively reviewed and strengthened, further recruitment to increase the capacity of the police, military and other paramilitary agencies. More than a year after the summit on national security, it appears Nigeria is not any safer. Nigeria is experiencing a security crisis, and the urgency of the situation is once again a matter of debate during Thursday's plenary session.
Just yesterday, one of my constituents sent me a video, and these bandits were bold to say that this is where they are, and this is what they do, and if anybody feels he can, this is where they are, and this is where their headquarters is. This thing is not reducing by the day. Why? Because it has long become a business.
As lawmakers suggest possible solutions to the problem, some others are perplexed that the president appears not to have looked into previous recommendations by the Senate, particularly those from the National Assembly Security Summit.
But I think what is most important, Mr. President, is to engage the security agencies with the aim of establishing special force so that they will have special units in these forests, because that's where the problem is. These bandits have taken residence in all the forests.
So I would like to recommend further that we invite the Acting Inspector General of Police to come and brief the Senate next week on the security situation, especially kidnapping across Nigeria.
Also in reaction to the killing of 2 aid workers in Kajuru Castle, the Senate Committee on Diaspora and Non-Governmental Organizations is asking the president to declare a state of emergency in Nigeria's security sector to prevent a total collapse of security in the country. Linda Kibe, Channels Television News.
Well, the Senate is waiting to hear from the Inspector General of Police. The police boss is, in the meantime, addressing long working hours put in by his men. He says that this, among many other reasons, has caused a lot of stress and mental issues for his officers and men before now. Going forward, he then ordered the reduction of the duty structure for policemen. He was speaking at the maiden medical conference for the police force and the launch of their health awareness strategy in Abuja.
Arguments have been raised that the resonating incidents of misuse of firearms and other extrajudicial actions by police personnel often result directly from the work-related stresses and emotional conditions which disorient their rationality. In consideration of this, I have ordered that, with immediate effect, the shift duty structure of the Nigerian police, which is currently a 12-hour 2-shift system, should be reverted to the traditional 8 hours 3 shifts. This directive is specifically informed by the need to address a major age-long occupational stressors, which long hours of duty endangers among personnel in the Nigeria police force, and which occasion depression and abuse of power and other unprofessional conduct. All of this, if not medically managed, could engender unprofessional reactions with fatal consequences to the affected police personnel and members of the public.
In part 2, after the break, Accident Investigation Bureau says that former Taraba Governor Dambaba Sontai flew without relevant authorization. Stay with us.